Here's a story I read on Reddit. When I was talking with an older friend who was a very well-off millionaire, I jokingly said, "I'll trade you my age for your money." And his reply has always stuck with me. He said, "I can do more with your time than you can do with my money." Life is only about 900 months. By the time I'm writing this article, I'm already 22 years old. The average age of Chinese male is 76 years old, which means I've already finished 29% of my life. Funny, I was still seeing myself as a child, as if I still have a long way to go with my life. Time is ruthless. It just passes by second, completely unbiased and objective. It's a fate that nobody can escape. Time-wise, we're all on a sinking ship. Time is life. Think of life as rescuing things out of a house on fire. However much you can rescue is how valuable your life is. I once read a scene online of a dying old lady sitting at a table, looking at the people that go in and out of the supermarket every day to buy bread, oil, and toilet paper. The old lady sighed and said, "Look at the way they act. They seem to think that they'll never die." Nike has a slogan, "Yesterday you said tomorrow." Since life is so short, I hope you spend it on doing things you like, and you do whatever you want to do right now. Because if you don't do it now, you just might never do it. It's like, you can now afford the toys that you couldn't afford when you were a kid, but you don't want to play with them anymore. Tomorrow or accident, you never know which comes first. No one can be sure to see tomorrow's sun when falling asleep. The only time you can control is now. People always think that they still have a lot of time. Once he becomes excellent, then he'll go confess to his love. Once he has the money, then he'll go travel. Once he has the money and the time, then he'll spend more time with family. But sometimes, the waiting turns into never. Some people, if you don't love them now, you never have the chance to love them. Some things, if you don't do them now, you'll never have the chance to do them. Like John Maynard Keynes put it, in the long run, we're all dead. So don't wait. Start now, or you won't start at all. Time is running out. Do it, and do it now. I once visited an artist at his house when I was in Mexico. When he was showing us around the house, he said something that struck me. He said, "When I was young, I was waiting for my life to happen, not knowing that it is already happening." When people become old and dying, they don't regret that they did something. Instead, they regret that they didn't do something. Always ask yourself, how will you live your life if you know that you're gonna die in 5 years? Live as if you'll die today. Dream as if you'll live forever. Alexander Lubitschev once said, "No matter whether you're happy or in pain, time flows coldly every day." Life is you trying to seize those times and do things that truly make you happy. More likely than not, you cannot change the world, but you can certainly change your own mentality. If there's a word that defines my life philosophy, it'll be efficiency. Since life is so short, efficiency is the only way for me to squeeze out the most value out of the short amount of time that I exist on this planet. Everything I do, I always consider its efficiency by calculating time, energy, attention spent, and value, happiness, growth gained, to determine whether this thing is worth doing or not. For example, facing exams, I will first study to make sure I pass. Let's say 70 out of 100. That'll be the minimum effort I've put in. After that, it might take 2 hours of extra study time to go from 70 to 80, but 5 hours to go from 80 to 90, and 10 more hours to go from 90 to 100. Along the time, there's gonna be an equilibrium point where the cost of time needed to be spent in order to raise one more point is exceeding my opportunity cost, which means the same time will bring me more value if I spend it on something else. Then I will stop studying after I pass that equilibrium point. In reality, I always spend 30% of the time and achieve 70% of the score of the top students. For me, it's a great trade. This applies to many other things as well. For example, playing tennis. It is simple to go from novice to intermediate level, and would take triple the amount of training time to go from intermediate to advanced level, and would take a dozen-fold amount of more training to become a pro. Sure, I want to be as good as I can in tennis, but I also love many other sports. So my equilibrium point methodology will help me decide how much time and energy to spend on a specific sport. Below, I'll share my efficiency philosophy with more details. Generally, I spend time on 3 major categories: happiness of life, learning knowledge, and learning skills. We'll discuss them one by one. Time is not only a scarce resource, but it's also non-renewable. It's exclusive, which means that if you spend it here, then you cannot use it elsewhere. Therefore, you must spend your time on the blade of the knife, on the most important things. When I was much younger, my mom used to instill a concept in me. All the time you have, either you use it to study hard and gain knowledge, or you use it to play hard and gain pleasure. Whenever you become too tired from studying, don't force yourself to sit in front of the desk, spend minutes reading the same paragraph. It's a lousy deal because you neither learned nor you played. I think what she said makes a lot of sense. Rather than staring at the textbook with a blank brain, letting each second of time go to waste, it is better to play and enjoy childhood, go rest and come back later with a fresher mind. I remember even when I was in junior high school, before high school entrance exams, if around 9 p.m. and I was still doing my homework, and my attention would have notably dropped, my mother would recommend that I go to bed and sleep, get up early tomorrow morning, and learn with a clearer mind. Now looking back, I am very grateful to my mother for this. I got enough sleep and grew into 6 feet tall. I spent a decent amount of time playing and goofing around. And very fortunately, I didn't waste too much time learning meaningless information at school. Below are the things I intentionally avoid in order to maximize the efficiency of my life. I don't like going to nightclubs. I know clearly why I go to nightclubs, looking for sex. Each time the vigorous male sexual desire would push me to nightclubs, I had to pretend to be happy and excited, dancing with a girl for several hours, and then do whatever I could in order to try to lure her back to my place. I always think it's a bad use of my time and regret about it all the time afterwards. Until I get horny again. Every time my brain would say abort, but my wiener would say go. I don't like playing mahjong, poker, or such. First of all, I think these skills are useless except for killing time. Even assuming that I've become quite good at it through learning and practicing, and can win money from it, I'm still not that interested. Because these activities are all zero-sum games, which means if you win, then somebody else must lose. You did not create any wealth or add any value to this world. Instead, I can use my time to create wealth through entrepreneurship and business, or other methods to become richer together with others. I don't play any sort of video games. I haven't installed any games on my phones or my laptop for years. I used to play a lot of video games when I was a kid, especially that game called League of Legends. I think I must have spent over 3,000 hours on a game during those few years, but eventually I got bored with it after having all things figured out. After experiencing all possible circumstances, then I just bid goodbye and never looked back. In retrospect, it indeed let me have a fun ride and experience the true joy of gaming. A joy I'll probably never get to feel again for the rest of my life. But in exchange, I gave it thousands of hours of my youth and got permanent myopic eyes. I never watch any games, football, soccer, baseball, or basketball, doesn't matter. Watching a complete game is a waste of time for me. I could easily watch the replay and only watch the highlight compilations. I can absorb the same amount of information with a shorter amount of time. Achieving the same goal with higher efficiency can save me chunks of time. Additionally, I always wanted to be the player on the field rather than the audience on the side. I would much rather participate and be cheered for than spectate and cheer others. I never follow celebrity gossip, be a bystander, follow crowds, worry about unimportant stuff that has nothing to do with me. My time just deserves something better. I never engage in meaningless socializing. I exit whenever I feel like. I give zero care about what others think of me. After all, most people in this world are mediocre and boring. I don't have time for you. College students should participate more in club activities and do not join a club with the intention of building connections. Your network is determined by your exchange value. You're only qualified to talk about connections when you have things to offer. I watch everything from an analytical frame of mind. If there's no longer things I can learn from it, then I'll move on. For example, I watch Logan Paul not to kill time, but to figure out how he can become so influential. I watch rich kids' documentaries. I observe and learn, try to figure out what makes us different and what I can learn from them. I watch female channels teaching girls how to catch affluent rich men and make them commit to them to figure out how girls' brains work. The only TV series I ever watched was Jailbreak, and that was only because I want to see the most reputable show in history. I pay attention to their camera angle and transitions, the pace of the plot, and the formation of each memorable character. Then I'll use what I learn in the videos I create. Next is an interesting concept called tititainment. It's that the elites create cheap, nutritionless entertainments for the poor to concentrate on. Such entertainments include pornography, gambling, blockbuster films, television shows, gaming, endless gossip of celebrity dramas, disputes, conflicts. Brzezinski believed that in order to resolve the aggravated conflict between rich and poor, they can put a pacifier on the 80% of the population, give the mass a place to vent their excess energy after their 9-to-5 job, and let them sink in such cheap satisfactions. Let them rest in the entertainment information tailored for them, and slowly lose their enthusiasm, desire to resist, and ability to think. In a nutshell, giving the masses a meal, a job, and entertainment, so that they will be immersed in the happiness and have no intention of challenging the existing ruling class. Brzezinski said, "The public will gradually lose the ability to think and judge on their own in the near future. Eventually, they'll expect the media to do the thinking for them and tell them what to do." For me, learning is not only a way to help me stand out from the crowd, to excel more than others, but also it's a crucial step to make more money, to see clearer the true reality of this world. However, in the current era with an overload of internet information, now we need to learn to filter for the most crucial 20% of the available content, which carries 80% of the knowledge. The ability to quickly find the high-quality content and ignore the unimportant noise is a required skill to succeed. Like Simon Sinek said, "We're drowning in information, but starving for wisdom." Here's how I deal with the waves of information that come to my face each day. I never watch TV. Let's account for its sins. It's one time the speed. I cannot rewind and rewatch. It's mixed with tons of annoying, nutritionless spamming ads. I'm disturbed to the point that I cannot tolerate an open TV in my view. It distracts me. It steals away my precious attention. Watching TV is a blasphemy to my sacred time. I never read news. Most of the news is garbage after 24 hours. The media blatantly exaggerate and falsify things to catch our eyes. And I never miss anything important in my life. The people around me serve as a news filter for me. Oh, are you investing? Let me tell you, it's useless. By the time you see the news, hundreds of thousands of people have already acted on it. Rolf Dobelli described the news like this. News is to the brain what sugar is to the body. You can swallow limitless quantities of news like jelly beans, but these jelly beans don't nourish you. In fact, they are quite toxic to your brain. News events are just things happening on the world's surface. But to better understand these things, you want to understand what drives these things, what generates these events, and news stories don't tell you that. News give you the illusion of understanding, and the illusion is dangerous. The more news you consume, the less you understand the world. If news gives you competitive advantage, then journalists will be the richest people on the planet. Go deep instead of broaden your research for knowledge. For specific content to each website or high-quality YouTube channel, I will watch all of his content in a concentrated period of time, which could range from an hour to 2 weeks. Then I'll come back after a month to catch up everything again. What's the reason for this? First, learning like this in a high-density way is efficient. Second, I want to be an active knowledge pursuer. I want to look for the content I want, instead of passively being fed what to watch. It all comes down to trying to gain the most amount of knowledge in the shortest amount of time. Ever since I was 14, I've been gradually deleting all my social media, because spending time and energy on the latest updates of acquaintances are not productive. I gain little knowledge but much anxiety. The whole thing does not help with my growth at all, and I need to clear out all distractions that are in my way to success. From time to time, at some lonely night, I'll open Instagram or Facebook or WeChat and see what's new with the girls I used to have a crush on, my old buddies whom I used to play with, some interesting individuals I met in the past. I'll link up with them if I feel like it. Then I'll go back being the productive me the next morning. I avoid school's content and material, because I'm not living for the GPA scores. I am not one of them sheeple. I already know what I want. I'm not the average kid you have to force them to study, because otherwise they will just waste time playing video games. I personally already have a very clear goal in mind. I want to learn the knowledge that'll be of use to me in the future. Things either I truly love or things that I can monetize on. Instead, here's what I do to learn. My best friends are YouTube, Google, and the internet in general. There's a wide range of content up there. Literally, 99% of the stuff you need can be found on the internet. The combination of audio, video, and text on YouTube allows me to absorb information at an amazing speed. I usually watch videos at 2 times the speed or even faster. I can pause whenever I feel tired. I'll rewatch whichever part that I didn't comprehend at the first time. For websites, I use a plugin which reads the texts. This allows me to use both audio and visual together to learn. Doing so hugely speeds up the time. For me, lecturing and textbook reading are such a horrible way to study. Come on, we're in 2020 already. Most of the knowledge I've learned so far in my life comes from the internet. I think this is by far the fastest learning method I can find before the advent of the brain-computer connection. Learning a skill means acquiring abilities that require repeated muscle memories to learn, like learning a musical instrument or learning a sport. Here I'll illustrate by using some sports that I do: NYC handball, ping pong, tennis, and badminton. Just remember this: the fastest way to improve is to practice using multi-balls. Because if you look at it, most of the time and energy were wasted on picking up the balls. By reducing this action, you can allocate more time to useful practicing. Additionally, practicing the same shots in a row allows you to focus and learn faster than practice by playing games, where other shots are involved and you need to worry many other things. Prepare a bucket of balls. Use all of them and then pick up all the balls all together. Or you can ask someone to keep feeding you the same shots. Or you can use a serving robot to do so. In essence, in such fields where muscle memory is being the determinant factor, whoever takes the most amount of shots in a fixed amount of time improves the fastest. And that's why I excel at 4 different sports. I once read an article on why Brazil always yields football stars. It's because there's a local sport called futsal, which is basically soccer in a smaller field. When playing futsal, players run much less and get to touch the ball more frequently. The more times of contact with the ball is what makes all players learn faster and become greater. Sadly, such obvious things are frequently ignored. I remember one time when I was on a high school tennis team, the coach always likes to gather people up and make us wait in line to hit one by one in the same court, leaving 5 other courts there empty. I think this is extremely inefficient, a horrible way to spend our practicing session, literally an insult to my precious life. So being the rebellious kid since 1998, I will always serve a few balls on the adjacent court between my turns. This annoyed my coach. He feels that I don't obey the orders or don't follow the groups, and he didn't like me. Well, f you. I don't care what you think of me. I only care about how much I improved and how much I gained out of my life. Oh, and by the way, he's pretty trash at tennis. Treating time with a long-term mentality means you invest the current time in exchange for higher returns in the future. You do activities such as learning, working out, building a business, or practicing a certain skill. The point is that these are activities that take quite some time to cultivate in order to be achieved. The opposite is short-term mentality, which is the human's natural tendency. Our brains prefer immediate pleasures, such as TikTok, Facebook, video games, alcohol, nicotine, drugs, gambling, Netflix, and pornography. These are the things that give you instant gratification. Instead of waiting a couple of years for your results to come to fruition, you instantly get that dose of dopamine into your brain as soon as you do it. Each applauded achievement requires a lot of time and dedication. Often there is no direct feedback along the way, and thus it's easy to get frustrated and lost. But the ability to delay enjoyment and investing time in the long-term projects is a necessary attribute to succeed. Most people care more about their current impression in front of the other people. They care about their well-cultivated appearance and presentation of a successful status. They buy luxury stuff. They buy liabilities rather than assets. I always use the long-term, the growth mentality. People with such mentality cares more about their changes and their progress. They don't care about their current performance. They only care about who stands out by a large margin in the future. They know that learning is a process, and it will be difficult in the early days. But because they improve all the time, time is their ally and everything is getting better each day as the time passes by. Example: back in the old days when I was playing video games, there were 2 types of characters you could choose from. The type with advantage in the early game and the type with the advantage in the later game. I will always pick the latter one, because I enjoy the feeling of befriending with time and increase the success rate as the time goes by. Another example is, I used to have a man bun hairstyle. Along the way, I found out that the shape is not symmetric. One side is missing a little. I can regrow, but will be quite ugly in the short term. Or I can just keep it like this, bear an asymmetric shape, and just ride with it. Of course, being me, I choose to regrow it, and took 2 months to grow it out. Life is a big game that is composed of many small games and tons of small decisions. Success is only a temporary state, but growth is forever. From now on, think before you do something. If a thing has no long-term value, then don't do it. Another way to classify time is to see whether you use it to create your own things or consume other people's things. Consumption refers to spending time or money on other people's creations, like watching TV series or movies, playing games, buying luxury bags and designer shoes, etc. You're not creating anything new. You're not adding any value to the world. Creation refers to making use of the results of countless predecessors to push the human knowledge boundary a little further. You are adding new things that prior do not exist. Creation comes in all kinds of forms. You could be adding something to Wikipedia, writing a song, creating a YouTube video, writing a novel, producing a film, starting a business, etc. The greater value of your creations, the more people will thank you with their money. Think Steve Jobs created the iPhone and me created this video. During the process of creating, you will get feedback from the outside world, and you can use those feedbacks as clues to find what are the things that you truly want. You will eventually come to understand it is what you create that defines who you are, not what you consume that defines who you are. These achievements that we left behind are the reasons why we feel that we haven't walked through a meaningless life while laying on our deathbed. After all, our lives will eventually end. Fame, money, power, lust. Although these things are good, but they still cannot escape the meaninglessness of death. What you gain will eventually be lost with death. However, what you produce will stay in this world forever. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, they're all people who have exhausted their lives to create amazing things. Remember, the greater the value you generate, the more irreplaceable you are, the more achievements, fame, wealth, power, and influence will come to you. The more you can do the things you want without restrictions. I'm just like you, being the poorest at the most beautiful age of my life. But the best solution is not complaining about the government, the society, birth, or whatever factors that you cannot change, meanwhile doing nothing about it. Regardless of what age. When you have no money, don't bother to think how to spend and consume. Spend time to improve yourself. Spend money to invest yourself. And a brighter future will ensue. So how should we allocate our time between endless things we can choose from? A famous management scientist named Stephen Covey proposed a 4-quadrant working method. It is to divide the things that need to be done into 4 categories according to their importance and urgency. Important and urgent. Important but not urgent. Unimportant and urgent. Unimportant and not urgent. The idea of the average person is to do important and urgent things first, and finally do things that are not important or urgent. No. The 80-20% rule tells us we should pursue only doing important but not urgent things. All day long, being pushed around by some urgent little things, exhausted from running around. This is a very inefficient way of life. A CEO who is busy with trivial daily matters will not have any insight into the company's long-term future. An employee who is being bossed around cannot achieve anything big. A student who is always preparing for the next exam wouldn't succeed in the long run. This kind of method of living is like trying to drive a car straight by staring at the steering wheel, whereas they should look at the tree in the distance to adjust their angle. Many people don't understand priorities. They pay attention to various unimportant details. They can often point out small mistakes. They can easily spot any punctuation errors in someone's PPT, but they have no idea what the bigger picture is. This is actually particularly useless. It's putting the cart before the horse. Perfect clothing, impeccable hairstyle, all things organized. This style is not worth imitating. This kind of person doesn't have a clear priority ladder. It takes a lot of time and energy to organize every little thing. If you never miss a flight, that means you've wasted too much time at the airport. If you have never lost anything, you have wasted too much time organizing. If you have never done something wrong, that means you're not doing things big enough. You're not taking enough risks. This is why the majority of people who have made extraordinary achievements in a certain field appear a little retarded in some other area, to the point of can't take care of themselves in basic daily matters. The fact is that they don't care about the trivial things that any ordinary person can do. They spend their limited time and energy on more important things. One sentence that annoys me is that there are no trivial matters, The point is that someone needs to take care of every little thing in order to succeed, like the cleanliness of his desk, making his bed every morning, and presumptuously call it feel achieved the first thing in the morning and have more momentum for the rest of the day, or form a good habit. That's bullshit. There are of course big and small things. No small things means no big things. There are countless things for you to choose to do in this world. And how can you succeed without differentiating the important and the trivial things? Nassim Taleb said the same in his barbell principle. The core idea is to do only the most important things and use the saved time to play. Only do things that are on the two ends and ignore the things in the middle. Either I do the hardest things or play and do nothing. The things in the middle are done by the mediocre people. I don't have time to do simple things. Some people are confused about why their schedule is full, yet still feel like they gained and learned little. I think it's because their timetables are filled with various things that helped little to success, and they're completely oblivious of it. The key turning point for my sudden awakening of value of time is a Chinese article that I read when I was about 14. The author is Chen Tian. The title is, "If you can spend money for it, then don't spend time for it." The author is a programmer. After years of experience, he learned one important lesson. Instead of wasting tons of time on the internet to find free resources, it is better to spend money to directly buy it. Time is precious. As long as there are products and services that can be bought at a reasonable price to improve efficiency, then don't spend time looking for free or cheap alternatives. This has nothing to do with whether you're rich or not. This is a behavioral habit, and it is the necessary path for a person to gradually transfer his time to high add-on value things. Everyone can use his salary or learning ability to calculate how much their time is worth per hour. If you can make more money using the saved time, then you should pay for it. This is a required lesson for improving the efficiency of life. Luo Zhenyu once illustrated a personal example about this. Every time he went to eat in a restaurant with his parents, after ordering food, his parents would start calculating how much it would cost if they bought it themselves and made it at home. Then they always complained that a restaurant is too expensive. However, they didn't count the service, the environment to dine in, the time they would save from buying food from the market, cooking and then washing the dishes, and the value of enjoying a good time with family. The price we pay for a dish is actually the combined price of the large amount of labor, time, and the material that are spent on it in order for it to show up in front of us. Remember, you can always make more money, but you can never make more time. Your time is a much more valuable asset than your money. Time is the most precious thing. You should rather sell anything else than sell your time. When you grow up, you will find that the so-called financial freedom actually means that he no longer needs to sell his time in order to meet his needs of life. This is why the rich use money to buy time, but the poor trade their time for money. How we allocate our time determines what kind of person we become. We cannot decide how to die, but we can choose how to live. We cannot determine the length of life, but we can definitely change the width of life. When you feel bored, ask yourself, is it your life is boring, or you made it boring?